Hello, welcome to our Women in Leadership webinar, Achieving an Equal Future in a COVID-19 World. I am sure we have an amazing panel of accomplished and driven women here today with us. And I'm sure this is going to be of value for all of you. Thank you for joining us. And thank you, Rachel, Min, and Mary for being here with us and for contributing your ideas and your insights to women and to also allies. We all need allies in our journey towards an equal future and in our leadership journey. So I am going to start with some introductions. I'm going to quickly introduce myself because today is all about our panel. My name is Monica Hernandez. I am the founder and CEO of Mass Global Consulting. We're based in Tampa, Florida, and we are an agile software development and cloud services company. I am actually originally from Colombia, so that's my Latina accent. And here with me, we have incredible women that I'm really happy to share with you all today. Let's start with Rachel. She is the Vice President of Consumer Supply Chain and Global Logistics for AT&T. She's responsible for leading an organization of over 1,100 diverse employees that provide AT&T's customers with connected products and services. Rachel also maintains ownership of two very critical enterprise-wide programs at AT&T, supplier diversity and sustainability. And through the supplier diversity world is actually how we met at Kellogg University at a program for minority-owned businesses like Mass Global, a program that a common friend founded years ago, Jim Norrie. And so I've been around supplier diversity professionals and world for a while. And when I met Rachel, I could immediately tell that her commitment and passion for making sure that supplier diversity truly makes a difference. And a fun fact, she joined AT&T as a wireless network radio frequency performance engineer and rapidly rose to executive director. So hopefully we'll hear some insights as to how she did that. Then we have Mary. She is Senior Vice President of Sales and Marketing for the American College of Pathologists. Mary comes with over 30 years of experience in healthcare, in sales and marketing roles. She's been at companies like Cardinal Health, CareFusion, Ansel Healthcare. And I met her actually through an introduction from Tony Lopez, our lead board member at Mass Global. And so thank you, Mary, for joining us today. And last but not least, we have Min, who is CEO and co-founder of YC. YC is a global AI, artificial intelligence platform that solves a 1.9 trillion problem in the consumer packaged goods industry by optimizing products on retail displays. So she is an award-winning serial entrepreneur and a software engineer like me. So we have a lot of things in common. She has a master's in software engineering from Carnegie Mellon, and she's been featured in Forbes and NBC and Business Insider. And we met through our common interest in technology and emerging technology like artificial intelligence. So happy to have another Latina entrepreneur with us today. Thank you, Min, Mary, and Rachel for joining us today. So we're gonna spend some time going through some questions and exploring some ideas that can offer some insights on our topic today around women leadership. And I'm going to ask each panelist before answering the first question to add anything they want to share with all of you about their bios or the background. And so before we do that, let's go to our very first question. What role have mentors, coaches, or sponsors had in your career? And what advice would you offer women regarding this? Rachel, can we please start with you?
Sure. Thank you, Monica. And thank you for having me. I'm so thrilled to be here, especially with Mary and Min, and of course you. This is such a great topic, especially as, there's really a focus on, diversity in the workforce. And certainly that includes women and women of all colors. So very happy to be here. A little bit about me. So I am in supply chain. I've been in supply chain since 2009, but as you said, this is not my original intent. In fact, working at AT&T was not my original intent. I actually grew up wanting to be an astronaut. That's all I ever wanted to do. I worked really hard in school, and then I got to college and I worked a little less hard, but I still graduated with an awesome degree. And then I didn't really know where to go from there. And so when you talk about networking, I would say that was my very first experience. So I had a friend in college whose dad was in the, we'll call it the cell phone business, because that's what it was called back then. And he had been saying for 2 years, I really think you should get into the wireless mobile business. I didn't know anything about it. I thought, how do I use my RF background, my physics background? And he said, that's all it is. It's physics. So you're perfect. And I never took him up on it. And finally, 2 years after I graduated, I thought, man, I'm going to be a bartender having a lot of fun with an astrophysics degree. And I'm going to be 40 and I'm probably not going to be thrilled with where I took my life. So I called him and I said, is the offer still standing? Will you still help me to get into this industry? Because I was just looking for any, real job at that point. And he said, what took you so long? Of course, you show me that you'll put the work into it and I will get you the interview. And, did I know that that was networking? I didn't, not at the time, but it was my very first experience. And it was a great one because I put the work in. And the other thing about networking and coaches and mentors and advocates and sponsors is they're there not just to set up the connections for you, but they're there to boost your confidence, really. They're great for talking to. They're great, for coming in and saying, man, I don't feel very smart, or I don't feel like I handled this well. And they're there to bolster you, maybe with some tough love sometimes as well. But I will say that there's networking, and that's what this is. So me meeting Mary and Min, and your story, Monica, about how we met, that's networking, and that's really powerful. And I think women do that really, really, really well. And we need to continue that. But there's also coaches and sponsors. I will tell you that I have always looked to my boss to be my best ally, because when you talk about a sponsor or an advocate, somebody who's really going to speak on your behalf, they're going to put their name on the line. And the only way they really know you well enough to do that is to see you in action. So if you're not talking with your boss, your current boss, you're missing a huge opportunity. The reason I rose so quickly when I joined AT&T on the wireless network side of the house is because, I kept saying, this is what I want to go do. I'm really, really, really engaged with the customer experience. And I really think I can take my technical background and make it approachable to customers. And so through my performance, but also because I had been talking to my bosses, they believed that too. And so I kept rising up because they kept saying, gosh, she believes in people. She's great with this, but she's really great for understanding the customer and how you put those two together. And then that's how I got into supply chain. Honestly, I had been on the wireless network side for about 12 years. And I said, I really want to be on the business side of the house. I have a background in sales and in customers, and I've done this. And again, it was my boss who went to bat for me and said, man, I really think she could be on the business side of the house. And he said, go interview with supply chain. I didn't even know what it was, honestly. But I did the interviews. Of course, I scoped it out. I understood what supply chain was before I went into the interview. But now here I am almost 11 years later. It's my second career, my next one that I never thought I was going to have. And again, it was because I used the folks around me who knew me the best to advocate for me. And I'm always very open about what it is I want and those places that I want to go. So I think you do have to use it effectively. But I will say this, and then I'll pass it off to Mary. Networking, let me say this differently. I think networking, again, is easy for women. This is networking. I do think it's hard. And I think people should understand that, because they tend to see us up here and think everything's easy and we know how to do this. I still find it very hard to reach out to somebody that I don't know, or I find it really hard, for instance, if somebody says, hey, have you met this officer over there? You should probably really get to know them because they would love you. Like, it's hard for me to make that phone call and kind of introduce myself or say, do you want to go have coffee? And so it's something we all have to work on. Some it's easier than others, but I still don't think it's kind of this natural thing to think, I'm going to go find a mentor, I'm going to go find an advocate, or I'm going to go find a sponsor. And so I want to leave you with that you have to put the work into it, but it really does pay off.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Such powerful messages. Networking can be really powerful. And when you give, right, to others, when others are trying to network with you, there's sort of a full circle, right? When you need help from someone, then it works better. So I guess that's my idea to add there too, that we should not always be looking for help from someone, but also offer what we can provide to others.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Rachel. Mary, would you like to continue about mentors and coaches and sponsors?
I'm not sure I can do that justice. Rachel, yes, yes, and yes. You defined a coach and you defined a mentor and you defined a sponsor, and they're kind of different. And I didn't really understand the differences, especially as I was building my career. A mentor is somebody who's going to kind of watch out for you. They're your fairy godmother or godfather corporately. A sponsor is somebody that's actively promoting you and marketing you. And early in my career, honestly, I didn't really have enough confidence for a mentor or a sponsor. I didn't feel that I was worthy of it. So in that regard, that's where a coach comes in. And so there are many ways to get coaches. It could be a peer. I might advise for folks that were like me back then, not feeling worthy of it. A professional executive coach is a powerful ally. So that was really helpful to me to help me understand how would I employ or deploy a mentor and a sponsor. And then finally, mentors and sponsors are everywhere. There are so many people that want to help you. So, get yourself ready to understand how I would utilize that. And then there'll be people falling all over themselves to help. Thanks.
That's great, Mary. Thank you so much. Something I've heard before, and maybe you'll have as well, that might offer some idea of the differences, is something like this. You correct me if you heard it differently. A mentor talks to you, a coach talks with you, right, about communication or executive presence, and then a sponsor talks about you when you are not in the room. So that might help us guide who we need, and I feel that we all need all three of them, to help us in this leadership journey.
And throughout our careers, even late in careers, we need all three of them.
That's right. And it's so powerful when you say that it's really hard for us. Sometimes I feel like we women, it's harder for us to ask for help. But again, it's so powerful. So let's get out of that comfort zone and say, hey, I need this to get to where I want to get.
And a trick that I found was helpful for me was understanding that those coaches and mentors and sponsors want to help. So you're not a burden by asking.
Absolutely. We all want to have an impact on someone else's life, just like we look for help from others. Thank you, Mary. Min, would you like to continue on this topic of mentors and coaches and sponsors?
And thank you very much for inviting us. Monica has been thrilled to be with Rachel and Mary, and I feel so related to all these things that you say, especially the lack of confidence. I think women are brought up in certain ways that we don't think we are worthy of something, and it resonates a lot with me because I think I have self-confidence since I was a very child. I was a child, but I had very low self-esteem, and I didn't know the difference until maybe 10 years ago. I was raised in by my parents, Chinese parents. I was born in China, but I was moved to Panama when I was 4 years old, and my parents decided to move here, and that's where my Latina backgrounds come from. And so I can speak from the Chinese culture, the Latin culture, and also the American culture where I studied and I'm currently living at. So fortunately, when my parents were my first mentor, coaches, and sponsors. They did not tell me that I could not do something just because I was a girl. In fact, my mom was also building things the same way as my dad. So I grew up without knowing that there are these stereotypes that science is for women, and I did not even have Barbies because we didn't have, as immigrants, we didn't have the resources to buy that. So sometimes I think the fact that I didn't have Barbies led me to study math and science and engineering. But anyway, so I did not know the stereotypes, and I was never felt that I was treated differently in engineering classes and science classes because I was a woman. But it changed when I was switching from technical roles to more managerial roles, when the line between what is the right answer and the not the best answer were very blurry. And I realized that I didn't speak up. I knew I could do something. Like I had that confidence. Like yes, I know I can do this project. I know I can do it well, but I didn't feel that I had to speak up, or I didn't feel that I had to promote myself, because it's like, don't you see my work? Why would I have to promote myself, right? And that's the unfortunately, I had colleagues, friends, and bosses that they did that for me. They would tell me that yes, you could be a senior member, why not? I'm like, well, I'm still so, I'm still so junior. Like, well, you are more senior than the other ones that have already been promoted. So having mentors, friends, and coaches, I mean, it's, as Mary and Rachel said, they are everywhere, and they don't have to be this, they don't have to have the same role all the time. Like sometimes a friend can be a sponsor, but then that friend becomes a mentor, or the other way. So yes, and I think this is everything around this topic is about people helping people. Like a lot of men helped me because there were not that many women in my profession. So the first support I got were from men, mostly from men. And now that I get to know amazing women like you, we are kind of promoting each other and sharing our own experiences. And that's when we realize that we also have a lot of biases that hinder ourselves to be seen as, or perceived as leaders, even though we are leaders. So yes, we, as you also said, if we can also be mentors, coaches, and sponsors of other people, whether men and women, that would be great. And I think the world would be a better place. Thank you.
Great insights, Min. Thank you so much. And it's so true. When we work on an equal future, this is not just women. We need allies for sure, right? It's women supporting women, but it really, truly takes a village. And so we all need to work together to make sure that we have equal opportunities. This is a great transition for our second question, which is all about the current barriers that women leaders face in achieving that equal future. And I'm going to stay with you, Min, on this one. And if we think about what's happened in the last 12 months with a pandemic, right? We've probably all read that women actually have been impacted in many ways more deeply than men, right? The reality is that we have different circumstances at home sometimes. And so it's even more important and relevant for us to figure out how do we address those challenges that we have to truly become the type of leaders that we can be in this environment that we're in. So, Min, would you like to start us with that one?
Yes, I think the world is recognizing that there could be another kind of leadership, that the fact that we're seeing so many broken systems uncovered by this pandemic is also showing that the way we have been doing things may not be the best way for today, and that women can provide a different kind of leadership that is more encompassing, that is more holistic, that is more human-centric. And I think because of our nature has been able to provide life, we also think about how to protect lives, not just the lives of our children, but also life in general, and the well-being of our colleagues, our employees, and our customers. So I think this is a great opportunity for society to recognize that we have to change a lot of things, including how leadership is perceived, including how success is defined, including how women are perceived. And for us women to know that we don't have to be like a man to take charge. When I started working, I did not even wear skirts, and I was wearing unisex pants because I was afraid that people would think I was promoted because I was showing my legs. and now I see that it's more powerful if we embrace who we are from every perspective, not just from the intellectual perspective that I could do math or code the same way as a guy, but that I also have this other side that, yes, it could be more emotional, but there's nothing wrong with that emotional side that I think is more human side, and bring that to our careers, our families, of course, but also leadership.
Thank you, Min. Rachel?
Yeah, gosh, I so agree with what Min is saying. I think to take, to put the negative of all of this aside and look at the positive, there is a big difference now in how we look at so many things, how we look at leadership, how we look at managing employees, right? I mean, I think it's insulting every time I hear it, but when CEOs come out and say, wow, people really are productive at home, like, okay. But I agree with Min, as we think about having to manage through that, and we think about being very people oriented, and we think about empathy and thinking, okay, what's going on in my own life? And maybe I should check in with people. I do think there's room. And I think now, the mindset is opening up, saying, what does leadership look like? They're not calling them soft skills anymore, which I love, because that kind of always, to me, again, insulting to say that because you can reach out to people, or because you have a higher, emotional quotient or EQ, it's not just all about how smart you are. It's actually more about, do you inspire? Do you engage? Do you lean in gracefully? Can you collaborate? And I love seeing that, because it's no longer, to Min's point, and I was a big believer in this, by the way, we all came from kind of a man's world, right? I came from RF engineering, coding. I loved being in a man's world because I felt like I knew how to play in a man's world better than how to play in a woman's world, to tell you the truth. And I loved being the one that was smarter than all of them. And I loved being the one that was going to be more memorable than any of them. So it was actually harder for me to kind of start working with women, because then all of a sudden it was like, wait a minute, I'm not as special anymore, because I know a lot of other great women who actually are smart and do this and do that. So I do think the one thing about COVID, and again, I'm always going to look at the positive aspect of this, but I think there are so many women who are in different situations, but I think it does still come down to this. You still have to take care of yourself first. And again, if there's a positive that's come out of this, I hope we can maintain this even when the world goes back into, the rat race, if you will. This continued focus on what is it we need. We have to be our best selves first. So whether it's, learning how to get flexibility in your schedule, learning that you don't have to be at the office full time, learning how to talk and be productive and show you're productive, learning how to de-stress yourself, taking that little bit of downtime. I'm hoping that that's something we can move forward with. And I'm hoping that society is seeing that, we can't all, be running 23 hours a day. You have to start with you, and there has to be goodness in you, whatever that is, whether it's meditation or taking a bath or taking a walk, but realizing that makes us all better. That's what I'm personally, as a leader, going to commit myself to continue, even when we go back to the office, and really wanting to make sure we don't lose that whole staying in touch with ourselves.
Amazing insights. Thank you, Rachel. That balance is definitely very important to be our best selves at home and at work. Mary, what would you like to add to this?
Well, this question required me to reflect deeply, and it took me a while to get my head around this one. The statistics would argue that there are still very large systemic barriers to women and people of color in the boardroom, right? Or in the executive leadership teams of corporations. That said, when I reflect on what Rachel and Min just discussed, this whole COVID horror and Black Lives Matter and the Me Too movement are requiring boards of directors and executive leadership teams to really rethink their paradigms. I feel like we're at a point where economically, financial decisions need to break up that old way of thinking. So I asked myself, now, what do we do about that as women, right, who have these systemic issues? And I kind of think of it with two primary ways. If you're a woman in leadership or any person of goodwill, whether you're a woman or not, then you're kind of obligated to think about how you recruit, mentor, and give opportunities. It has to be intentional if you're in the leader position. If you're in the individual contributor position or you're earlier in your career, you need to be recognizing these trends, seeking out where there's openings of doors within your organizations or in professional societies, and push those doors a little bit. An example might be, in my organization, we're forming a new diversity, equity, and inclusion group. That is a door. So if you hear those little triggers in your organization, go pound the door, go volunteer, get at that table so that maybe you can get an influence opportunity with those leadership teams or board teams. So I think that's how I think about it. Yeah, it's still, there's barriers still are there for sure, but there's a time now, we've got a time where perhaps we can knock a couple of them down.
Well, I love that you talked about what can we as women do, right? That we're not victims of the situation. We can actually be proponents of solutions and actively seek those partnerships and alliances and mentors and coaches so that we can, advance in that future. Thank you, Mary. So I'd like to move us to the third question, and then I'd like us to have some time for Q&A. So the third question is about talent, and especially in the technology industry, talent is key, but it's really everywhere, right? There's no company or organization that can accomplish goals at a certain scale without really good people. And it's becoming harder and harder to attract and to retain that talent, especially in a distributed and virtual world. Like at Mass Global, we have talent in Colombia, Argentina, US, and every month we add another country. That background that I have, for example, is our office in Medellin, Colombia. And so I used to be able to go there and connect with people. And as a leader, that's really important. But in this new virtual world, how do we manage that, right? What is your own secret to continue to engage and to manage and motivate your talent? Mary, would you like to start with that one?
Well, I'm glad you asked that. I joined the College of American Pathologists in June of 2020. So I was hired in a pandemic. I live in New Jersey. My corporate offices are in Chicago. And I've got a large team that reports to me. And we have, thousands and thousands of members. And so I learned a lot about how to engage people and talent in a totally virtual world. When we onboard into a new team or a new job, the first thing we have to do is build relationships, right? And we generally do that, or I did that in a physical world by meeting with people, walking around the office. It was the casual conversation that built the relationship that allowed my technical or leadership competency to, I could be as smart a person in the world, but if people didn't believe in me or trust me, who cares? So how was I going to do that in a virtual world? And what I learned is Zoom is a powerful connector because you're going to see a little kid run in the background, right? Some little boy is going to do a bomb in the middle of a meeting. I also tools like Teams or what was Skype give you DM opportunities where you can just simulate an office or cubicle drive-by. So I found that I really had to be very intentional about how to build the human experience into my onboarding in a new world and a new team. And I also learned that put the camera on every single time, every minute, keep the camera on. Don't put that little face on. So you're going to have to put on makeup and, like dress from the top half of your body. Yoga pants are acceptable on the bottom. So I think, just being very intentional about how you use eye contact and overly think about relationship building would be kind of how I think about how to get, retain, and grow talent virtually.
That's great. Thank you, Mary. Being intentional is definitely very key, not only for talent, but really for anything that has to do with leadership. Min, would you like to add to this topic?
Sure. Well, the pandemic has also taught us a lot of things. When we decided to go remote, the whole team remote, we intentionally added even more meetings that we didn't used to have, just to check up on people, just to make sure that everybody was okay. Even if we didn't have like a work topic, we wanted to see the whole team like 3 times per week, just to catch up, to see how everybody was doing. So that is how we initially worked. But then those meetings have evolved to be very productive meetings. So for example, Monday's meetings are strategy meetings. Wednesdays are check-up meetings for non-technical topics. And then Fridays meetings became demo day. And then once a month, or every time there was a person birthday, we had a movie day together. So the most difficult part of keeping the engagement is how do you bring in the human connection in a virtual world? And for us, it has been, fortunately, the whole team knew we have worked a lot for many years together before the pandemic hit. But we did include all these checkup meetings and leisure meetings. And as we recruit new members, we also have to make sure we have that with them. So our new members, we have some of them we have never seen in person, but we make sure that the first meetings are about their hobbies and everybody else introducing themselves. And eventually, when it is safe to meet again, our operational model is going to change so much that we don't envision having big offices in certain cities anymore. We're going to be more scattered and meet at a paradise destination, the whole team or a whole unit, just for team building or onboarding, and do some kind of create personal connections, but also some strategic planning, and then everybody goes wherever they want to go. And I think that's where the world is going. I see here in Silicon Valley, a lot of companies are going down that path, even those that have a lot of real estate investment. And we also decided to go down this path to be able to tap into great talent worldwide, and also give more flexibility to our team. Like, nobody misses traffic. We all miss each other. We miss the office. We miss being together, but nobody misses traffic.
Thank you, Min. There's some advantages for sure. And that is so true. This open up more possibilities and more flexibility in terms of where the talent is now located, right? And so that's why we've been expanding in other countries as well. By the way, Min, I love Florida, but I suggest Colombia for the paradise destination for your next meeting. Rachel, would you like to add your thoughts on this topic?
Yeah, I think Mary and Min said it. And so I just want to comment on a few things that they said, because I've read a few articles that made me scratch my head. I will tell you, when the pandemic first started, I treated every day like it was a work from home day. So I was in my pajamas and, we all thought we were going to be home for a few weeks, right? And did not take advantage of video. Like I was kind of reveling in the, I'm going to roll out of bed and log into my computer and gosh, nobody gets to see how fabulous I look. And, it was about 2 months into it when I realized that for my own sanity, I needed to put some structure into my day. And so it no longer felt fun to just kind of roll out of bed. You know what I mean? It started feeling more like, who am I? And so I kind of started going, you know what? We do need to turn on video. I do want to see people. That is how we're going to engage. And so it started out with me doing it, God forbid, without makeup on, and just being like, guys, it's more important that I see you. And it was so fun, Mary, to your point, to see weird things going on in the background. And I have a big dog who only barks, when I'm giving an office or presentation. And
Of course.
everybody knows my dog's names now. It's Walter must really like that idea. So there's this intimacy that's grown into it. But what worries me is I have seen some articles, that say, as women, we shouldn't feel pressured to go on video, and we've got so much going on and we shouldn't have to wear makeup. You know what? My take on that is this. The reason I started putting makeup on is only because I couldn't stand looking at myself on video. I mean, I was just kind of like, I have to see myself. I want the makeup. And so I started with lipstick, and then it kind of gradually turned into eyeshadow, whatever. But I love the more casual, right? I have this bet that, you can all get in on is, are we going to all peacock out when we get to the office and we all go back to getting really, really dressed up? Or are we going to kind of continue in this, I feel comfortable mode? So I think you have to learn to be yourself, and you have to get comfortable with whatever it is. But I would say this, everything we've said about being intentional is true. As a leader, you have to reach out to folks. So for instance, when, the George Floyd killing and the aftermath and Breonna Taylor, I didn't know what to do as a white woman. I know that I was heartsick and just, I felt stupid and I felt lost. But what I didn't want to do is not say anything. And so I actually reached out to members of my team and I said, are you okay? And they said, I don't know what to do with any of this, but you know what? I just can't. I'm just so thankful you reached out to me. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't just assume everybody wanted to go talk about it. I didn't just assume, all of my Black employees had a voice in this. Many of them said, I please stop coming to me. This is like, I'm not going to educate you guys on what it's like to be a Black person. But they all said, thank you for reaching out and for recognizing that this is really there. So I think it goes back to just leadership 101. And that is, people want to work somewhere where they feel empowered and they feel recognized, but they also feel known and they feel seen and they feel, valued. And valued means, they feel like there's that connection. And so I think the video for me brings that connection. And again, I don't care what you look like. I'm kind of hoping for something weird going on in the background. But again, I think the video is key. And I think learning how to do some of this, learning how to build these relationships, the intentional phone calls, the intentional texts, hey, are you okay? Making sure that you're almost doing that more so than you would have done when we were in the office, because, you just don't know. You don't know where you may have that person who doesn't live with anybody else. And what are they going through? They just want to go, hey, thanks. I really appreciate that. So, again, I don't think the rules have changed from a leadership perspective and what talent wants. Talent wants to feel like they add value. But I think what's changed is how we interact with them and how we continue to get them and help them to feel empowered and valued.
Thank you so much. This is such powerful discussion. I love the authentic and the honest conversation. We have a few minutes, so instead of having our fourth question, I'd like to see what we have in Q&A. Maria Ahumada, did getting to where you are, position, role, career, always mean having to work more? How have you managed your other life, being a spouse, mother, friend, etc.? So this is, I think, a question that a lot of us can relate to. Who wants to jump in on this one? Anyone?
I'll go. So it took me a long time to figure this out. I am a workaholic. My dad's a workaholic. I love working, but I will tell you that I just celebrated my 22nd wedding anniversary. I don't know why you stayed with me for 18 of those years. Thank you. I put work above everything. And it was because I didn't know any better. This is where the coaches and the mentors come in and go, you're doing what? I mean, I wouldn't take a vacation because the minute I tried to take a day off, somebody would put a meeting on my calendar. And instead of saying, oh, I'm sorry, I can't go, I'm on vacation. Could you change it? Or can I send a delegate? Oh no, I felt like it was my duty to have to go to that. And what happened a couple of years ago is I got really, really angry at AT&T, really angry. And I was like, I don't have a life and this place doesn't care about me. And finally, a coach looked at me and they said, Rachel, do you think AT&T wants you to feel like that? Like, who told you? Like, we want you to take a vacation. Like, if you're at home and you're not listening to your husband, instead you're looking at your phone to see if somebody sent you an email at 9 o'clock at night, like, you've got it all wrong. And I thought, yeah, that's easy for you to say. You're an officer of this company. And then I thought, wait a minute. I mean, when you talk about boundaries, I mean, these are the areas that you do have to learn. And so there are politics and there are, setting expectations. And certainly when I demand that my team go on vacation and that they not check in, but I also demand that they have a delegate who knows they're the delegate that I can turn to, because for me as a leader, I need to get the work done, but this is also my chance to see what the rest of the team can do. Work is going to exist even when you're gone. And that's the thing I think we all have to get underneath is there's this guilt or there's this, again, I think it goes back to what Min said, like this lack of confidence somehow that maybe you're not very good and they're going to figure that out while you're gone, or I don't know, but there's just this thought in your head that you have to do everything. Now, I had to make some choices. Certainly, I chose not to have children. And I know that's getting kind of personal, but this whole, can you be a mom? Can you do this? Can you do that? I don't know the answer to that, but I do know that this is, again, where your boundaries have to come in, and you have to understand that decisions you make, are going to have impacts. And so maybe it is, I'm going to have children and I'm going to have to talk to my leadership about whether or not it's okay for me to be more flexible so I can go, work or get off at 3 o'clock and get back on at 6. But that requires action. And so I think, again, that's the part when we go back to, you need to talk to people, but don't just assume you can do it all, because that's not how it works. And by the way, that's not how men do it. Okay. Every man out there goes, I'm taking my vacation, or they walk in and they go, I'm taking that promotion. So why do we as women just assume, oh, thank you for giving me that promotion, I'm going to work 100 hours a week for you? You know what I mean? I'm not saying we do it to ourselves, but I feel like we do kind of do it to ourselves.
Thank you, Rachel, for getting personal there. I think we can relate to some of that for sure. Mary, I mean, we only have a couple of minutes left. Anything you'd like to add?
Yes, I'd like to add to what Rachel said. I'm also workaholic. I would like to say I'm a workaholic in rehab right now. I am trying to be a productive person and not a workaholic person, and trying to get things done in shorter amount of time. And it was such a hard lesson for me to learn, because I think women are very detail oriented and we want to have everything perfect. And we just pour ourselves into working and getting the results and getting all the nitty gritty of something. And we don't know that the work, the performance is only one part of being a leader or being a successful person or a holistic person. There is exposure, there is your image, there is your balance, your well-being. So I had to learn to have hobbies. I had to learn to stay in touch with my friends, because I used to think that Well, I am a very loyal person. If you need me, I will always be here, but I won't reach out because I don't even like to go to parties. So that was one thing I had to learn. And then the other thing I learned when I moved back to Silicon Valley, and I wasn't aware of this, and being a feminist and being somebody who has been promoting science for girls and women, I never felt that the lack of role models affected me, because fortunately my parents were very encouraging and I always liked technical stuff. But the lack of role models that could be professionals and mothers did affect me. I was running away from marriage. I was running away from children because unconsciously I thought, as a woman, you cannot have both sides. Like either you do one thing well or you do the other thing well, but you cannot
have it all.
And coming here, I've met so many female founders. And well, you, Monica, you have 2 kids, like, and you're such a successful woman in tech. And I didn't know that many female entrepreneurs in tech, in very demanding jobs, who are also mothers. So it is possible. And one of the big takeaways of coming to Silicon Valley, even though it's not like a pro-women place yet, is that I was
to make it happen.
But seeing so many incredible women doing it, you just feel that, yes, you can do it as long as you believe that you could do it and you make your own choices and you're comfortable with your choices. The former CEO of Xerox said, there is no such a life balance thing. Like it's not something is for granted. There are decisions that you have to make, and you have to be comfortable with the decisions you make, but you know that you can make those decisions.
Thank you, Min. Thank you so much. Mary, anything quick to add there?
Oh, just yes and yes. And one more point. As you as your career advances and you gain more authority, scope, and people, you will need to be more available. Absolutely, you will. So I think you need to make choices. So if you really need to be available to your kids, and you don't, in my case, I do have a kid and her father was the full-time parent. So that released me. But if I needed to be there for my kid and I couldn't balance it, I would have needed to find a job that would allow me to balance. But that said, I've seen a lot of moms do the more narrow job to be there for their children. And then when their children got to a point where they could be more independent, they revved up their career. What they did not do is say, I can't do it because I've been out of the workforce. So life is about puzzles and pieces and stages. And so in a way you can have it all, but maybe not at all at the same time.
Right. I love that. And I know we're running a little bit over time, but you said something that made me think the importance of having a support system around you, right? That's how I can manage being a mom and a wife to beautiful kids. My husband quit his job so I could start Mass Global 8 years ago, and he was a stay-at-home dad, and now he's a key part of our business. I learned a lot of what I know from my mom, who also helps us watch our kids. And so have a support system around you, because we can't do it all ourselves, for sure. And so this is a support system, having these incredible women here with me, joining me in this great conversation. Please, let's act on some of these advice and tips. I've been to so many powerful sessions and conferences, and then we go back to do the same thing. So take away 1, 2, 3 items that you feel I can go implement some of that. I'm going to go look for a mentor. I'm going to be intentional. I'm going to figure out my boundaries. Take something that you felt was relevant to you and apply it. And let's keep the dialogue going. Let's keep supporting each other, amplifying each other's success. This is Women's History Month, but working towards that equal future takes more than March, right? We need to keep working at it. So thank you so much, Rachel, Min, and Mary, for being part of my support system and for sharing your incredible insights with all of us today. And thank you to our participants. I hope this was valuable to everyone.